Welcome back, everyone. You know how we like to take a whole bunch of information, could be articles, notes, research, and just boil it down to what you really need to know. It's kind of a shortcut to getting up to speed quickly. And as you probably know, we spend a fair bit of time looking through the AI agent store. So it's a great resource we keep returning to, always finding interesting new AI tools there. So today we're focusing on one find from there, Perplexity Labs. It caught my eye because it's presented not just as a tool, but more like an AI productivity engine. And all the info we're discussing today comes straight from their page on the AI Agent Store website.
That's right. And Perplexity Labs, well, it sets a pretty high bar for itself. The goal is basically to build complete projects autonomously.
Complete projects, like what exactly?
Things like detailed research reports, interactive dashboards, even generating functional code or creating small applications. It apparently does this using what they call AI-powered autonomous workflows.
Okay, autonomous workflows building whole projects. That immediately brings up the big question, I think, for you listening, and definitely for us too. How realistic is that? Can an AI tool really manage that level of complexity and build something substantial on its own? Sounds almost futuristic.
Yeah.
So let's really try to unpack this core promise handling genuinely complex tasks. Usually when we think AI assistance, it's, helping write text, maybe summarizing something. This sounds like a whole different level.
It really does. The key difference seems to be these self-supervised workflows they talk about. And what's interesting is how they work.
How so?
Well, they apparently combine several things dynamically. Deep web browsing to gather information, actual code execution, so it's not just finding data, it's processing it, and then generating assets like charts or images, all based on your initial prompt.
And it does all that quickly.
The information on the site suggests a typical workflow takes about 10 minutes.
Okay, hold on. 10 minutes. From a single prompt to a complex output like a report or dashboard. That sounds incredibly fast. Is that for, standard tasks, or can it handle something genuinely novel? Because, we've all spent way longer than 10 minutes on reports.
That's a really fair point. I think the way to interpret that 10 minutes claim is probably less about creating, say, a groundbreaking, entirely original piece of research from nothing, and more about automating the really time-consuming, often tedious setup stages.
Ah, okay. So like the initial data gathering, structuring things, maybe building the basic code framework.
Exactly. It's likely automating the grunt work, the stuff that takes hours or days before you even get to the strategic thinking part. It handles the foundations, freeing you up for the higher level analysis, the interpretation, the parts where human insight is crucial. It's about efficiency in those early stages.
That makes more sense. It's optimizing the process, not necessarily replacing the whole creative or analytical journey.
Okay, then let's talk about another big number they mentioned. An 87% autonomy level. That sounds, well, very high. What does 87% autonomous actually mean when you're using it? Are we talking set it and forget it?
Yeah, 87% is definitely intended to signal a big step beyond just basic assistance. It implies that for the vast majority of the steps involved in a complex task, you, the user, are more of an overseer than a micromanager.
So less hand-holding required.
Precisely. You wouldn't need to guide it through every little decision. For example, you could ask it to analyze some market data from an article. It might then autonomously figure out how to structure the data, apply formulas, generate charts, maybe even build a simple interactive display for it.
All on its own.
Largely, yes. That's the implication of that high autonomy level. It covers that whole range: research, coding, analysis, executing multiple steps without constant human input. It seems designed to sort of think for itself during the main execution phase. Interesting. It sounds like it's adapting as it goes, combining browsing, coding, generating outputs, all while trying to reach the goal you set. So, thinking practically, what does this mean for someone, maybe a professional, wanting to use it? What are the standout use cases?
Well, for professionals, especially where data and reports are key, it looks quite useful. One big one is creating detailed reports backed by solid web source research. That's a huge time sink normally.
Definitely.
Then there's generating spreadsheets, charts, interactive dashboards, the essentials for data presentation. And critically, it seems it can build simple web apps or prototypes without you needing deep coding skills or juggling multiple tools.
So basically, it saves a lot of time on setup, analysis, and presentation prep.
That seems to be the core value proposition, saving significant time on those fronts, letting you focus more on the insights and strategy rather than the mechanics of getting there.
Right, and that efficiency point, especially for research, really comes across. I noticed in the preview video on their AI agent store page, they highlight how it cuts down on wading through endless search results. Anyone who does research knows that pain.
Oh, absolutely. Reducing that manual sifting through links would be a major win. You could imagine, say, a marketing analyst getting a jump start on competitor analysis instead of spending hours just collecting raw data.
Exactly. And what about the AI models underneath? Are you locked into one specific engine?
That's a good question. Apparently not. The page mentions flexibility there. It supports several major large language models. Names like GPT-4, Claude 3, Gemini are listed.
Okay, so users can choose.
It seems so.
Yeah.
You can pick the model that might be best suited for your particular task, which is a nice touch. It lets you leverage the specific strengths of different models, perhaps.
That flexibility is definitely a plus. But speaking of choices and what users think, let's look at the feedback. This is where it gets, well, a bit thin, maybe. The AI Agent Store page shows a 3.0 out of 5 rating. And this is a big but, it's based on only one rating. Just one. What can we even take away from that?
Honestly,
Yeah.
not very much at all. With a sample size of 1, that rating is statistically pretty meaningless. It could be an outlier, could be someone who had a specific issue, could be anything.
So it doesn't really tell us about general satisfaction.
No, not reliably. It probably just means it's relatively new on the store or hasn't gathered much public feedback yet for whatever reason. It is listed as a paid, closed-source tool, which sometimes leads to fewer public reviews than free options.
Okay.
It does have a 72% popularity level listed, though, which suggests, people are looking at it, there's some interest, even if reviews are scarce.
So definitely one to watch. Maybe check back on the AI Agent Store later to see if more ratings appear. But it certainly seems aimed at a broad professional audience looking at the categories it's listed under.
Yeah, things like productivity, research, business intelligence, software development. It covers a lot of ground.
And the tags really reinforce that. Autonomous workflows, deep research, data visualization, mini apps, self-supervised AI. It paints a clear picture of its ambitions.
Absolutely. Those tags nail it. It's clearly targeting professionals who need more than just a simple AI assistant. They need something that can automate significant chunks of project work. It's quite fascinating to see this trend towards AI becoming more of a collaborator.
It really is. And speaking of opinions, you mentioned the AI Agents Store page has a community opinions section.
That's right. It mentions the summaries of opinions, positive and negative, gathered from places like Reddit are available. However, getting the full summary requires a premium membership on the store.
Ah, okay. So there might be more user sentiment data available, but it's behind their paywall. Interesting.
So if we try to tie all this together, thinking about it from your perspective, listening in, Perplexity Labs really feels like part of this bigger shift, doesn't it? AI tools moving from just helping out to genuinely taking ownership of project creation. And that raises a pretty big question for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. The question to think about is, what kind of impact could an AI agent that truly builds projects autonomously, we're talking research reports, functioning mini apps, have on your work? Is it just about freeing up your time, making you more of a strategic director? Or does it fundamentally change what project management even means and maybe what skills become most valuable in the future? Something to definitely ponder.
Absolutely. And if you want to explore tools like this further, you can always check out the source we used today.
That's AIAgentStore.ai.
Right. Definitely worth browsing if you're interested in these kinds of AI solutions.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you find these conversations useful, leaving a rating for the show really does help other people discover it. We appreciate it.